Good afternoon, race fans. Welcome to the fifth race of the season here at Stockton 99 Speedway in the NASCAR Weekly Racing Series presented by Dodge. We have the Hotwood Western Late Model Division on tap tonight for their first 100-lap event of the year, the first of the three-race series that we call the Tri-Holiday events. We have the Pure Stocks here tonight in the infield area, and we have the BCRA and USAC Midgets on hand, and we're going to have a fun night tonight. We want to point out one thing. Over to the left, out of sight right at this moment, this early in the day, is a full moon. And if tradition holds true, we could have a fiberglass fiasco.
I think it's going to help others who are just wondering if there's one last thing that we would like our listeners to take away from your story.
Speedway and the Shiels family, I'd like to welcome each one of you guys here, and you'll have a time later to share your personal feelings about Jim. Right now I'm going to read Jim's bio, which he wrote himself a few days before his passing. Walter James Shiels, born in Charlotte, Michigan, December 21, 1943, passed away December 23, 2002. Jim Shiels, a longtime writer, statistician, media rep, and author of 8 manuscripts on auto racing for tracks in Central California. He suffered since 1988 with type 2 diabetes, which resulted in the loss of his left leg below the knee on December 19, 1992. Jim had a long battle with colon cancer and passed away on December 23, 2002 in Merced. Jim survived by his beloved wife, Jo, caregiver and companion of 12 years. He had 4 sisters, 54 nieces and nephews. Jim had a daughter from his first marriage, Susie of Ukiah, a stepdaughter and son, Tammy and Robert of New Orleans, brother and sister-in-law, Sonny and Ann Neighbors. After enjoying a full life career as a newspaper circulation from the age of 16 to 40, in 1978, Jim then took up the sport of auto racing in a way only he could afford as a writer and a statistician for Stockton 99 Speedway, also fitting in similar duties at Delta Speedway for 10 years and in 1995 at Altamont Raceway Park. Jim was highly popular and well respected by drivers, crews, fans, and track management. Jim persevered in the sport he loved to his last days. His presence will be sorely missed by all. At this time, we're going to play one of Jim's favorite songs, and also Sonny Neighbors will make one final lap with Jim's cart.
I climbed each charted course cab will slip on my way. More, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times I'm sure you knew that I bit off more than I could chew.
I think it died.
When there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my
Most people in the world experience a little bit of happiness when they have internal emotions that are positive, or when they have external circumstances that for the moment are positive. But both of those things are whimsical. The basic New Testament meaning of is a continual, constant state of happiness, a state of bliss, a state of blessedness, a state
Believe it. He had something to do with that. He did. Definitely.
Many of you haven't seen this banner down here for the NASCAR weekly racing series. Afterwards, if you want to come down and sign or write something, Joe will be taking this home and hanging it up on our wall.
Can you do any of that in Alabama?
Yes.
Just we're going to read something by Jim. I just want to, for many of you that don't know how much Jim affected a lot of racers, I want to read to you. This is a list of racers that were sponsored by Jim and Joe Shields. Dan Reed, if I recall, he was one of the first racers that Jim supported years ago. Ron Sturminska Sr., Sonny Neighbors, Harry Boletto, Dave Clement, Harold Maxwell, Jerry Crawford, Bob Stranwall, Steve McGovney, Tony Silva, Doug Todd, Dave Euler, Orville Dandel, Mark Whitney, Kevin Gachula, Eddie Dyer, Kenny Boyd, Ron Lyon, Paul Henry, Chuck Bailey, Tony Nassetti, Ken Mitchell, Steve Holmes, David Knight, Bob Gilligan, is it Gilligan? Gilligan, Frog Trent, Phil Tilbury, Rick Myers, Tom Virgo, John Philpott, Dave Philpott, Buzz DeBoer, Marty Newell, Phil Moore, Glenn, I'm going to butcher this last name. Moriarty, Ben Twisselman, Ted Armstrong, Dave Callett, Ty Mitchell, Rich Guffmiller, Joe Magana, Ted Clement, and Ivan Baldwin. Many of you probably, like myself, can't remember all those people, but many of them. Kelly would like to read a story that was written by Jim. It's called Driving a Racer by Jim Shields, and it was written years ago about one of his interesting memories here at the track.
I'm sure I'm not the only Ran who was longed to drive a race car. We must have the urge, or we wouldn't sit at our favorite racetrack week after week rooting on our favorite driver. We cheer them on because they do what most of us will never have the chance to do. Pilot a screaming race car in the thick of battle on Saturday night. Because of this urge and through the generosity and trust of a driver named Dan Reed, I got my chance and want to share the experience I went through. From the minute I arrived at Stockton 99 Speedway in 1978, I longed to try my hand behind the wheel, but never had the courage to ask. After all, what fool in his right mind would trust me with a $20,000 race car? From time to time, a driver would ask, "Ever drove one?" My reply would always be, "No, I'm not interested," or "No, I'm too scared," and then say to myself, "Why did I say that? I'm not scared to drive, I'm just scared to ask." After telling Dan Reed for 5 years, someday, he said the magic words, "You're driving my car next week." Needless to say, panic was the ensuing thought as the words flew back and forth. "I'm too fat, Dan. I won't fit." "Don't worry, Jim. I'll move the seat, bend the steering wheel, and we'll slide you in on a backboard. You're driving." "But Dan, what if I hit the wall and wreck the car?" "It's been bent before. I'll fix it. You're driving." "But what if I get hurt?" "Pay up your Blue Cross. You're driving." "What will my family do if I get killed?" "Your wife will have a party, and I'll be the guest of honor. You're driving." By the time I knew I was in trouble, I was finally getting to fulfill the greatest desire of my life, and all I could think about was, how do I get out of this mess? As the week went by, I received many words of encouragement from my friends. One said, "I'm going to push you all over the track." Another said, "Hope you like the wall." And still another asked, "Is your insurance paid up?" While through it all, my wife just walked around the house muttering, "Dumb, stupid, dumb." I called another driver, Harry Boletto, and said, "Harry, you're my friend. Tell me when I'll know if I'm about to lose control." He said, "Don't worry about it. Your rear end won't let you go fast enough to lose control." "Harry, can I borrow your fire suit?" "Wow, Jim, I'm big, but not that big." "We'll see what we can come up with by Saturday." As I arrived at the track, fear gnawing at my guts, and hoping no one would know I was out there, I was greeted by a sign placed on the ticket booth by the promoter's wife, Ann Rich, stating, "Special event tonight, Shiels driving debut." I headed to the pits and proceeded to look cool as I awaited my fate. Harry arrived first, handed me a fire suit, and said, "Stay low, watch the wall, don't pile up Dan's car, he's in the points lead at 191. Tell the other guys to watch out." "Thanks, Harry, nice words." As Dan arrived, I thought about telling him the one about the old war room, or insurance man said no. Then a last-ditch idea hit me. The track official said no way. But as I turned, there was the track promoter, Whitney Rich, with a big smile on his face, and I knew at last there was no way out. On went the fire suit and helmet, and in I went. Right off the bat, problems ensued. The seat belts didn't fit. "Sorry about that, Jim, I forgot. Hope they adjust out far enough, or we'll have to get some rope." As they pushed me towards the pit gate, my friend Ron was holding my VCR camera with a smile, saying, "Don't worry, I'll get the whole mess on film." More kind words. Finally, the gate opened, and the cars around me tried to lift. Out they went as I stalled. The motor! "Smile, Jim, act cool, and blame it on the car." At last, I made it onto the track and lost 6 pounds of sweat as I looked at the distance from the inside of the track to the outside wall, exactly 4.5 foot. The car wanted to turn left all the way down the front straight, but as I entered turn 1, it ran with no hands. Wow, I thought, if my car handled like this, I'd sue someone. As I went down the back stretch, I thought, check the mirror. Where is everyone? Am I low enough? And good Lord, is that my wife in the stands addressing party invitations? Through it all, my friend was pointing that stupid camera and smiling. After several laps at a blazing speed of perhaps 20 miles an hour, I got brave and kicked the gas. Talk about response. The car seemed to jump off the track as my head encased in the heavy helmet headed for the back bumper. I went for the brakes but couldn't get my foot out of the safety strap. Just as my heart was about to stop, my brain said, "Brake with the left foot like they told you to, dummy." Around and around I went, thinking of piece of cake, piece of cake. My next thought was, wow, there sure are a lot of other cars out here. And then I realized it was only 4 or 5, just passing me several times per lap. The starter threw the black and yellow flags to clear the track, but I got stingy. I'm not going in yet. I may never get another chance. I pulled up short of the pit entrance as Dan came out to the car. More words or encouragement. "You're not going fast enough. Put it in second." Second? I thought it was an automatic. Anyway, I went again, and almost immediately, zoom, there was another friend, Ken Boyd, driving in front of my path. Wow, does he know Dan's not in here? Zoom, here he is again, cutting chunks of my fender as he high-lows me. Somebody tell him it's me in here. Zoom! This time he looked at me and grinned. He knows it's me. Oh no, that's all I need, another friend. About this time, Ed Dyer, another local hotshot, shuts off his motor, enabled to pace his racer alongside mine. He smiles and points ahead with his unspoken look of, "Come on, let's race." And I fire back a cool look of, "No thanks, I've got groceries in the trunk." Finally, I decide to go for it, and as I scream down the backstretch, I let her drift high on the bank. Zip, zip, in and out of the turn. Okay, that's cool. Now faster. Down the front side I went, turning at least 4,500 RPMs and running a 20-second lap. Then I looked out at the Fiat, turned one corner, and mentally I pictured myself going down the freeway at 60 miles an hour and cramping the wheel to the left and heading back the other way without hitting the brakes. Harry was sure right. My rear end not only talked to me, it spoke in 7 different languages at once. About that time I felt a dizziness like one feels on a circus ride when it's spinning too fast. Yuck, I'm getting sick. Time to quit. As I rolled to a stop in the pits, smiling faces greeted me and the back patting started. "Great job, Jim. You didn't hit the wall." "What's the matter? No guts? Couldn't find second?" It'll take Dan 20 laps to blow out the carbon, but I knew they were all just jealous of my record-setting laps. I knew I had gone as fast as anyone out there. They had just let their watches run long to fool me. I drifted on a cloud all night, staying late to discuss my daring deed to all who would listen, as my friends left for Bourne, taking my camera with early the next morning. There he is coming through my door, laughing all the way to the TV as he put his tape in the player. "So, you think you went fast, huh? Just wait till you see this." The tape comes on, and as the car comes to a stop in the pits, little white patches appear on the tires, and the sickening thought hits my stomach. "Shiels," I say to myself, "you didn't even go fast enough to peel the stickers off of Dan's new tires." As the years have passed, my bruised ego has healed, and I look back with pride and a lasting memory of the day Mr. Reed trusted me and gave me something I will always be grateful for, that one day in my life when I got the chance to go so fast, so slow, in that gleaming machine. I only wish that every race fan could have the same chance.
Afterwards, if you guys have a chance, we're going to move this table up to the top. But there's this article and several other articles about Jim and his life. And Kelly and I would like to read a couple of comments that also he wrote, actually about many of you people here. And they're written a few years ago, so some of you may not recognize the people, but I think you'll enjoy this about, it's called Things I Enjoy About Racing and Racing Families by Jim Shields. And neighbors fried chicken and pea and egg or potato salad on race day.
Watching talented drivers win from the back.
Cookies baked by Carol Boletto or Laverne Philpott.
Watching Donna Treadway when she's really mad.
Retha Straminska's world-famous tacos.
Kevin Kuchula's coming from the back of the pack after being spun out.
Kim Lovelace's Levi's, the ones with the holes down the legs.
Buzz DeVore, trying.
Just staring at Jason White's wife, lucky guy.
Ken Boyd, driving on a string.
Angelo Carrillo trying to explain why he got robbed by the officials again.
I'm going to skip that one. Yeah. Jackie Gillette's ability to whip Tim and the entire crew while giving me a hug at the same time.
Guy Gabor's never-ending smoothness.
Dwayne Borvik pulling his hair out at midnight with 2 more features yet to run.
Just staring at Tony Silva's wife, another lucky guy.
Wishing I lived closer to Lodi so Karen Wagner could be my nurse.
Watching No Talent trying to turn left.
Staring at Doug Lane's wife. My eyes never get tired.
Watching Jerry Crawford race on less money than I spend on cat food.
Watching Jeff Thomas get mad when he misses the main by 1 spot.
Watching race tapes from Sam and David's action video.
Watching the Riley Halterman racing clan just having the time of their lives in the sport.
Watching my hair turn white while waiting for Barry Mitchell to finally show up.
Watching the little black cloud that rides over Steve Stacy's car and wondering what will happen and when.
And most of all, racing on Saturday nights, because racing on Wednesday sucks. I'd like to give each of you guys an opportunity to come down here if you guys would like to say a few words about your personal experiences that you have been affected by Jim's life. You guys can come down any time and feel free to share, and I'll just hold the mic open for anybody that would like to come down and share their personal feelings to Joe and to the rest of us about how Jim has affected their life.
Thank you. I'd like to thank, I'd like to thank all of you for being here with Joe and all of us getting together today. Jim and I had a long history and an awful nice one the last 3 or 4 years. Not a very good one the first 20 though, but we worked through all that and became pretty darn good friends. And he was an important guy to me, more as a friend than anything else. We're all going to miss him. He's in a better place. But again, thank you all very much for being here. Thank you.
Anybody else is welcome to come down. I just want to announce too that Jim was very instrumental in starting the Fred Tice Award as well, and he was also a double recipient of the Sportsman of the Year Award in 1996 at 99 Speedway and 98 at Delta Speedway. But anybody else, you're welcome to come down and share your feelings.
I can't pass up a chance to talk, ever. 20 years or 15 years ago, I started announcing racetracks. And I thought I was the greatest announcer in the world. Fact of the matter is, I knew I was the greatest announcer in the world. And I came over here and was talking to Jim one day. And Jim looked at me and he says, you know, John, you can be a great announcer, but your head's got to shrink about 10 sizes. Well, it was maybe 10 years later that I actually got a chance to work with Jim in a booth, and it was at Delta, and I was down on the racetrack. And Jim's up in the booth, and we set up a wireless, and we're giving away turkeys, and it's a big turkey night thing, and the turkeys are all frozen, and I have to give the turkeys away, and it happened to rain that day, and, well, a car lost a piece up in turns 3 and 4. Well, I went up, picked it up. I thought I was going to be able to make it up the track to get this piece of sheet metal off the track. I forgot that it had rained. Needless to say, I was covered with mud from my head to my feet when I found out that mud racetracks get really slick after a rain. I walked back around to the front. I spent the rest of the night covered with mud. My microphone was full of mud. At the end of the night, I walked over, went up to get my stuff from Jim. Jim looks at me, and the only thing he could say was, "See, I told you. You still need to shrink your head. You still got too big a head. You looked stupid out there all night." And these are my memories of Jim Shields. Jim was always one of the guys that was always had a great word for anybody and everything, and always had something to say constructive about what you were doing wrong. I loved him, loved Joe. You guys were great to me. Jim helped me a lot in my announcing career and in my career as at the racetracks, and I'm going to miss him.
Thank you.
How you doing? I'm Ted Harrison, for you that don't know me. The thing that stands out in my mind about Jim the most is that no matter if you were a champion or the gal that just showed up for their first race, you were important. You were important to him. He wanted to know about you, where you came from, you know, what your background was. He wanted to know everything about you, but you were just as important showing up for your first race as if you've been racing for 20, 30 years and everybody knew you. And I think that's something that really speaks about the man, that everybody was important, everybody counted, and he wanted to know everything about you. And he kept stats that, hell, I didn't even know we did, you know. I mean, he was amazing what he would write down and compile, and he was a great announcer too, great person. But that's what stood out in my mind about him. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the memories I have of Jim Shields was one of the memories that will stay with me for the rest of my life. It came after a night of racing in 1997 when I came back to the racetrack, and the week before, my dad had let me drive his car for one night after he stepped out and gave me the chance to run a few laps around the track. Well, anyway, that night was kind of eventful for me because I ended up getting lapped and ended up getting spun out in turn 1. So when I came back to the racetrack the following week, Jim was there to greet me, and he had a trophy in his hand. And I said, "What are you doing with this trophy?" And he says, "Well," he says, "you know, your dad and your brothers, they have trophies all over the place." And he said, "You know what, Rick?" He said, "I want to give you this trophy here." And I said, "What's the deal?" He held up this trophy, and it had 2 yellow flags on it, and they were crossed. And he said, "Rick," he said, "the trophies that your dad and your brothers have don't compare to this one here," because he said, "This is the only one for your first yellow flag. And I know your dad and your brothers don't have one, but," he said, "you have one." So that stuck with me, and I think about that all the time, and I still have it at home. And Jim's been a good friend of our family and to the racetrack, and I know we're going to miss them all. Everybody will. Today it's just a little deal for a man that had a lot to say and a lot of good things to share with everybody. Thanks again for coming out.
Thanks, Rick. One of the first times I got to know Jim as well, I had raced here half of a season, and I didn't know who Jim Shields was. And after the awards banquet, we noticed on the points that I should have received a trophy, and I didn't. And it wasn't no big deal to me. And I mentioned it to Jim, and he said, "I'll take care of it." And the following week, about 8:30 at night, I was in my backyard, spring toothing my backyard, going to plant lawn. And this guy walks up, and he's got a great big 3.5-foot trophy. He goes, "I told you I'd bring it to you." And he goes, "Man, do you live a long ways out here." And I'll never forget that. Jim and I sat and talked for a few minutes, and I thought, wow, this man is really devoted to this sport. And that was really my first experience with Jim Shields.
Hi, I'm Ted Clement. You probably don't remember me unless you're really old. But Jim Shields was always really kind to me, and a lot of times I had a lot of self-doubt about my ability to drive a race car, as I'm sure every racer will tell you that's a problem. But Jim Shields always told me, "You know what? You'll get better, kid. And if I ever hit the lotto, I'll fix you up. I'll put you in a really good race car. Not that damn Ford your brother's got you in. You really need a Chevy, you know, if you want to compete in a quarter mile." So I kept continuing to try to improve, and he kept treating me really good over the years. And he wrote really nice stories, even when I wrecked. And in fact, one night he called me up and told me, he says, "Hey, you're in the newspaper." I said, "You got to be kidding. I never make the newspaper. I never do anything special." And he said, "Well, you're in it this time. Apparently you caused one hell of a good wreck Saturday night." He says, "I was amused because I realized you didn't even race that night, but at least you did make the newspaper, so you're getting better." So I appreciated that, and I appreciated all the things that Jim and Joe did for us over the years, and how he treated the little guy every bit as much respect as he would have treated Richard Petty when he meets you. And that's what I'll remember him for. And I just wanted to let you know that I'll miss him terrible. He was a good friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, he's done a lot of special things for me. One of them, one time he went on vacation back east, and when he came home, he brings this thing over and he parks it over at my shop. And I don't know anything about it, you know, and finally he says, "Where was you born at?" And I said, "In Turkey, Texas." And he said, "Well, anybody know where that is?" And I said, "Shit, no, nobody knows where that place is." So anyway, he said, "Well, come on out here." So I went outside, and here's the city limit sign for Turkey, Texas. And it's sitting right out in front, and he ripped it right off the post and brought it home with me. There's numerous other things I could tell you, but I don't think I will right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Ken?
How we doing? First off, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up, and Bruce for his efforts. I've been out of town this week, and Joe and Sonny and Debbie and James up there at the catering, but good turnout. Suffered a big loss with Jim, a dear friend of mine and a dear friend of this racetrack's. And you all know what I'm talking about. He loved every one of you guys, competitors, whatever it was. Special man, and he set the level with his work ethics on this racetrack that he wouldn't let it fail. I mean, he went out of his way and made sure that each week it was going to be the best it could be. And so many times I'd come in from a busy day and I had so much on my mind about what needed to be done for this upcoming week or a banquet, whatever it might be. And I'd walk by my fax machine and there it was, Jim. And he had already done it or had it set and ready to go. I mean, he was just, I don't know, his work ethics were just amazing. And I think it was all driven from the love he had for this place and for the sport and for you folks. I mean, and he worked hard behind the scenes trying to support the racers, the sweep crews, the chaplain, whoever it might be, he was there. And you know, Jim, he wasn't afraid to tell you how he felt about things, which was, got a million stories. Wouldn't even know how to tell one of them right now, but I just loved his frankness and just come right out and let you have it if you need it. And he got onto my butt a few times, I guarantee you. And I had it coming, and it was a good deal. Well, that's all I had. Just once again, thanks for all coming out and supporting Joe, and we'll miss him. We'll miss looking up in that window and seeing that head with the hat on it up there with eyes looking all over this racetrack, just sucking it in. That's how Jim was. He just loved every second of it, right? You know, hey, he might bitch about it the whole time. I mean, I'd walk in there and he'd pull his glasses down, and I'm like, oh boy, I just want to head right back out. But I knew I had it coming. I was going to hear it sooner or later. So anyway, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Ken. Rick Boletto would like to present a plaque to Joe Shields and to Stockton 99 Speedway.
This is a little deal that we had made up for Joe and for the racetrack to commemorate Jim. It's just a little something that, well, I think it kind of speaks for itself. But it's something that we'd like people to see and to read each week when they come to the track and remember Jim, you know, because this was a typical saying that if you looked in a car that Jim Shields sponsored, there was a gold plaque in there and it said Jim was here. And when you seen that, you knew it was Jim. Something that we're proud to give you, Joe, and the racetrack here at 99. Thanks.
Thanks, Rick. Anybody else want to come down and say a few words?
Well, I don't know what I can say that hasn't already been said, but the one thing I like about Jim, and right after this presentation of this plaque, I mean, he really did love this track, and he did a lot of stats on a lot of different tracks. Altamont, and of course, Modesto. Jack McCoy, did you run Modesto 99? Yeah. Houston, did you flag at Modesto 99? Yeah. But anyhow, he really loved this particular track. And he saw me one night, and he says, Henry, he says, you know when this track opened? And I says, May 27th, 1947. He said, Billy Vukovich won. And wow, that was fabulous. I remember those names when I was a kid growing up in the 50s. I mean, those names were kind of magic, and they all ran right here. In fact, on that particular race, Vukovich won in the midgets, Harry Boletto was second, and Jack McCoy was third. And Jack Houston was flagging. Having a little fun, that's all. But he really did like the stats, and what I like about another thing that Jim left is he did, if anybody doesn't have one, get a hold of me or somebody that does, and you get the 99 Speedway book. You probably all have it, but if you don't, it's got all the stats. It tells the fabulous history of this track, and Jim really loved it. And he also did, like I say, the other tracks too. But Jim will be missed for all the things that were mentioned here from Ted Harrison and all my friends. And if I don't remember your name, please come and say hi or something, because this is where it's at. This is where a lot of fun, this is where the memories. I met my wife here. There's just a lot of good memories here, and Jim will certainly be missed.
Thanks, Henry. Dave?
My name's Dave Clement. I was a real good friend of Jim Shields. I'm not sure whether I should be up here talking. I'm not very good at this type of stuff, but I would like to tell you one story on Jim. When I first met Jim, I was here at the racetrack, and a few days later, he showed up over at the house, and he was carrying two big bags, canvas bags that were tied off at the top. And he knocked on the door, and we let him in, and of course introduced him to all the crew and stuff. We're all standing around the living room, and he says, well, he says, I understand this is a two-bit organization you run here. I says, you got that right. And he undone his bags, threw 2 bags of quarters on the floor. They were rolling around. They were down the every place you could think of. He dumped $200 worth of quarters out of them bags on the floor. I mean, they were down the floor furnace. He just wanted to know if he could join our organization. And that is just one story I couldn't leave without telling you, because he really enjoyed his racing. I've been to a lot of racetracks with him, and he enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you very much, Dave. Anybody else want to come down and say anything?
Okay, I'm not great at reading stuff in front of people, but I wrote this last night. Jim was a man of great integrity. Jim was the best part of this racetrack. Jim was a man that cared of others. He was a great friend to me. He touched my life and many others. Jim and I talked on a regular basis, not just at the racetrack. He would call to check on me, or I would call to check on him. I miss hearing Jim's voice, his jokes, and his advice. And most of all, I would greatly miss him here at this racetrack or reading his stories. Jim lived his life through all of us. He would do whatever he could to help other people, including telling them when they were wrong. That was Jim. Jim was a straight shooter, and for that I admire him and always will. I really do not have words to express how Jim has touched my life. He will be the person that I always look up to for the rest of my life. He has encouraged me to keep going on in so many ways. Jim was not a man to feel sorry for himself or anyone else. He always kept going. He always had a way with words that were very encouraging. The words that Jim spoke will be with me and everyone else for the rest of our lives. Jim was definitely one of a kind in my books. Thanks for being one of the best people in my life. Jim, we will all miss you. Joe and I have tried to keep up the tradition, and I plan to continue, except I will try not to wake her up all the time anymore. We love you, Jim. Sincerely, your friend for eternity.
Anybody else want to say any words about Jim? One of the things that Dave told me, and Jim kind of told me in an indirect way too, Jim kind of thought funerals were a place where you had a captive audience to cram God down their throat. And believe me, I'm not here to do that. I would like to hopefully recite some words of encouragement to each of you and tell you a couple of stories of people that have lived life and lived it abundantly. In Proverbs 15:24 it states, "The path of life leads upward for the wise, to keep him from going down to the grave." Proverbs 3:5 and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight." You know, the devil uses all kinds of activities to create turmoil in our life. He even uses smoke and mirrors, his way of confusing even the wise. We all have plans for our lives. Some of us would like to win a race or a track championship or a regional points race. You would be rewarded for these accomplishments monetarily as well as publicly recognized for that accomplishment. We have just heard of many of the accomplishments that Jim has had in his life and how he has affected our life. And I was listening the other day to the radio, and Adolf Coors IV spoke on his life and how most of us get our identity in this world by what we do, just as we have just heard about Jim. He was from a family that was the second largest brewery in the world. And even at that time, their family had accumulated. There was no peace or contentment in their lives. The Coors Company vice president changed Adolf and his wife BJ's life forever by asking him that all-important question, "Do you know where you're going?" Henry Ford stated, "He was happier when he was a mechanic than being the largest assembly line car manufacturer." John D. Rockefeller said that he has made billions of dollars, but not $1 brought him happiness. I remember Mr. Vanderbilt on his deathbed said that managing $2 million would kill anyone. I have a privilege of being friends with a man that lives a life of integrity and honesty in all that he does. He told me one day of an experience that he had, that a friend came in and told him that he was the richest man in the world. His response was, "I don't think my bank account would reflect that status." And the gentleman went on to say that he was not talking about material possessions. He stated that in all the people in the world he knew, you are the only one that your children have grown, got married, and still come and visit or call every day, and you share at least one meal each week with them. That is what great parenting can produce. Our Father in heaven is like this. He longs for a personal relationship with each of us. He is open to our problems. He is always there if we only have the faith to trust and obey him. The rewards are contentment here on earth and eternal life when we die. Our plans are not God's plans, as each of us experience each day. God gave each of us another day on earth. What are you going to do with it? I reflected on 3 weeks ago. We had a youth pastor at our church, and he was suffering from colon cancer, just as Jim did. And his parents came out here, and they ended up going back to their home in Cleveland, Ohio. And they went to see a specialist on Monday morning, somebody that they expected was going to cure him. And we all prayed for a miracle. Obviously, he needed a miracle. And when he went back there and he was examined by the doctor looked at him and says, I can't help you. The only thing that can help you is a miracle. He says, I give you 2 weeks to 2 days to live. The following day, while being checked into that same hospital, he was comatose that afternoon, and after many hours of pain and being basically out of it, he all of a sudden opened his eyes and got a big smile on his face as he looked at his fiancée, and he looked right past her to the corner of the room, and he got a even larger smile full of contentment, and he closed his eyes and released his last breath. And our prayer was answered, but God chose to take him home. I'm asking each of you today, do you guys know where you're going? There's two things that are inevitable, as they say, taxes and death. And we spend a lot of time trying to get out of paying taxes. But we're not going to get out of death. Friends, don't wait till next week, because we could be gathering again to reflect on your life. The passage I read you earlier was written by a man that was known to be the wisest man on earth. I plan on seeing Solomon sometime when I leave this earth. This life is a race, and when you take the checkered flag, are you going to see heaven's gates open and receive you for eternal life? I'd like each of you to bow your head, and Kelly's going to play a song that will be part of our prayer, and then I will conclude it with a prayer at the end of this song.
I hear the sound of a mighty rushing, and it's close, and it's every. I can almost hear the trumpet. His came the sound, the call. Where we go. around me, I see the seas fulfilled. Signs of they're appearing everywhere. Oh, I can almost see the Father as He sends out broken children. And at the midnight bride of Christ will rise. When Jesus steps out, to God's children, let Christ shout and those that shall be will be I look around me, I see prophecies fulfilled. The signs of the time, they're